morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, James I. Bond. James Bond, we've got 007 here in the room. And just so you know, you guys, you're going to love this show because you're going to learn so much valuable information that you can apply right away to make a difference in everything you're doing in your business. Especially if you're in service for others. James Bond is one of America's leading behavioral management and business marketing specialists. He's the author of Brain Glue, which we're going to talk about a bunch today. The secret to making your ideas sticky so they stick to your prospect's brain like glue, raising the persuasive power of your ads, emails, social media posts, and one-on-one presentation. So thank you, James. I'm so glad you're here.
Welcome. Thank you, Kathy, for having me. I love your podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, so James, I am looking forward to learning about your journey to discovering Brain Glue. And I have to say I have a lot in common with you. When I started my business 24 years ago, I was a volunteer at SBA, helping brand new businesses, a lot of them through the Chamber of Commerce here, to get started. And it takes a lot of patience.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. So, is that how you got started in consulting and management?
Well, it was a little before that. But one of my favorite movies of all time was the movie Pay It Forward.
Oh, perfect.
And I love that movie because it's the whole concept for me is like, because I became successful, I wanted to share it. Don't just be cocky like, oh yeah, this is me and everything else. Look at how rich I am. I remember when I first passed 7 figures, I called my wife because we were advertising for a product online. And I called her and I said, Pam, American Express just charged our credit card $1,000. And she said, well, shut it off, stop it. I said, no, wait a second. We just made 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. I'll call you right back. When I showed her how much money we were making, she said, well, spend more. That's my wife. She's awesome. But I remember the first time I started making so much money, and I learned the Brain Glue tools over time. And I started applying them. As I started applying them, it scared me in a way because I was making more money than I'd ever made before. And I started thinking, like, am I breaking the law? If I figured something out that I shouldn't be doing? It's just because it was so different how much money I was making. But today it's okay. Hey, money comes in, I'm happy with it. But I'm originally from Montreal. I've lived in Southern California. My family and I have lived in Southern California for 37 years. I was telling you that we named our middle daughter L.A., Lauren Asia, AJA. So we'd remember as soon as Lauren was born, we moved to Southern California. But when I was in Montreal, I worked my way up and eventually had an ad agency. Well, I had an ad agency, worked my way up, and eventually won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex Watches, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign. They were promoting me because they loved some of the things that I did. And so they said that, they promoted me, encouraged me to try to win the anti-drug campaign in America. And of course, I came up with logical reasons why you should not do drugs. They loved the campaign, but I lost. And I deserved to lose because when I saw the ad that won, it scared me. And it scared me for 2 reasons. The first one was, it's a guy holding an egg saying, this is your brain. And crack the shell and drop the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? When I saw that ad, 2 things happened. The first one was I recognized this is infinitely more profound than the ad I came up with, which is logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And the second thing was, this is emotional selling, not logical. He wasn't giving you logical reasons why you shouldn't do drugs. He was triggering your emotions and saying, look at that sizzling egg. That's like your brain sizzling. And it scared me because I had no idea how to do emotional selling. So I did some research, but, and went to the library and stuff in school, and like nobody seemed to know how to do emotional selling. So I decided to create a passion box where right next to my computer, I put a box. I call it the passion box. And every time I saw an ad or heard something, heard somebody say something that was emotionally powerful, rather than trying to overanalyze it, I dropped it in the box. I would write it on the 3x5 card or tear it out of a magazine or whatever, put it in a box in the hopes that eventually I'd know how to do emotional selling. So after 10 years, a little more than 10 years, we moved to Southern California and I met John Gray. And John Gray is an author. And he was telling me about this incredible book he wrote and frustration he had. And the book was called Men, Women, and Relationships. And he was telling me that people who read the book said, this is profound. It's changed my life. It's strengthened my relationships with my wife or husband or whatever else, or boyfriend or girlfriend. And it's one of the most incredible books I've ever read. And yet only a few people bought the book, a few thousand people, but still for authors, that's not very many. So then he's telling me that he was doing a seminar to try to promote the book, and he said something and all the women laughed and all the men looked at the women and went like, what's so funny that he just said? And then he said, see, there are some things that we say and a woman will laugh and men won't. And there's some things I'll say that men will laugh at and women won't. And there's some things that everybody will laugh at. And one of the women said, it's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet do you think men are from? And he said, I guess men are from Mars. And everybody laughed. When he got home, he started thinking, gee, if men are from Mars, where are women from? Well, women are from Venus. Venus is the god of love. What happens if I change the title of my book? Because it's not selling. People love the book, but almost nobody's, a few people are buying it. So what will happen if I change the title of the book to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and then refer to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus throughout the book, but still keep the same basic book? What do you think happened? Almost overnight, 500,000 copies got sold, then 1 million, then 2 million. I have a mistake in my book. I say he sold more than 10 million books. I know Steve Harrison, who helps him with marketing, and Steve says, no, you're wrong. I said, Steve, I talked to him and I was, doing research and everything. He said, no, we're over 50 million books sold. He was telling me they went from 20,000 books to 50 million books sold, all because he changed the title.
Wow.
And it blew my mind. And so, of course, I had a copy of the book. So when I got home, I was going to put the book in my passion box. But I was stopped for a second. I went, well, wait a second. Men aren't really from a different planet. I mean, I know a lot of you women out there think we act like it. I know. Sorry. I think we are from a different planet. What can I say? No. But we're not from a different planet. But Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus is basically saying that men are so different from women that it's almost like we're from different planets, and like women are from different planets. And it's a metaphor. And then I went like, wait a second. Is metaphor the secret to emotional selling? I mean, and the egg is a good example. Like, this is your brain on drugs. Is the guy was holding an egg. He wasn't holding a brain. He was holding an egg and said, this is your brain. Okay. He means like this, pretend this is your brain. Okay. And then he cracks the shell and drops the egg into a sizzling frying pan and says, this is your brain on drugs. Any questions? And they were probably sitting around a table thinking, we need to create an ad for the anti-drug campaign. So let's see what happens when you do drugs. And somebody probably said, well, it fries your brain, Okay, what else gets fried? Egg. Why don't we show an egg and say, this is your brain on drugs, and then have a sizzling frying pan? And so I suddenly realized, like, is metaphor the secret to emotional selling, or at least one of the secrets? So I took the passion box, which was filled because it was over 10 years worth of putting things in that passion box. And I dumped it on my bed because I needed a big space to put it on. And I realized that metaphors is one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. Wow. And so, the first thing we do when we come up with a theory is like, have I just figured out something that nobody else has figured out? And because I was a consultant, I had clients. And so I got to practice on clients. Usually it's 80-20. We'll do 80% of the stuff we do we know works, and 20% of the stuff that we'll try. Hey, I think there's a pretty good idea. Let me try this and see if that works. If it doesn't work, at least we know the other stuff works. And I tried this on the second client I had. The first one was a bank. and they referred me to this construction company. These three partners who had a construction company who, after 10 years, had $2 million of sales. That's not bad, right? Ha ha ha. I applied brain glue and they shot from two in 10 years. It took them to 2 million in sales, right? In 1 year, I took them from 2 to 10 million in sales. Their sales exploded. And then 2 years later, they reached 32 million in sales, all because of my applying brain glue. And it scared me. It's like, whoa, is this going to work with everything or everybody? And so I started applying it to other clients, and I started applying it to some of the things I was doing, and sales exploded. And I'll talk about brain glue so we can understand how it works. But when you understand, go ahead.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Absolutely, Kathy.
Okay, so a lot of this seems generational. I mean, not the egg cracking, but a lot of this, where I'll make a crack about an old movie. Well, it seems like anything you didn't like, you remember the songs, you remember all the lyrics, you remember the terrible ads. but you have to be, it's almost the same generation or the same age group. Are you finding that the brain glue, the recipe includes things that mostly are just human, just the human condition, versus tagging on to an old IBM commercial? Or do you understand the question?
Yeah, no, this applies to everything currently today. We apply this to businesses, we apply this, and their sales explode. No, because, let me give you an example. I'll give you one of the brain glue tools, okay?
Okay, sure.
Rhyme, okay? So I'll start this and tell me what you think the end is. And everybody else, everybody who's listening, think of what the end is, okay? Jack and Jill went up the
hill.
Okay?
Yeah.
All of us know that, okay? When was the last time we heard that? For me, I'm old. It was like 10, 20, maybe 50. It was actually about 60 years ago the last time I heard it. And yet I still remember it. I could be in my deathbed and somebody says, hey, James, Jack and Joe went up the, and I go, hill to fetch a pail of water. Why do I remember it? There's certain things that stick to the brain like glue. And somebody asked me this, and so I want to say this because this is probably what got me into that, okay? So why do we remember it like it was yesterday? Because it's rhyme. Rhyme is one of the brain glue tools, okay? But there are a bunch of them. And here's the thing that I discovered. It's, my name is James Bond. It's James I. Bond, okay? So people can at least, because people will try to find my book and they go James Bond and you find Sean Connery and like all these other, to find my book is almost impossible. Actually, it isn't impossible, but if you put quotation marks before James I. Bond, you find it. But that's not the thing. So I'm with my wife and we're walking through, we're just walking in our neighborhood and there's this church nearby. So we're walking through the yard of the church. It had a really nice lawn and everything. And I see this guy and his wife who are, I guess, they're watching it to make sure nobody steals anything or something like that or damages anything. And I said, oh, hi, how's it going? He has a dog, come out here and the dog, where I'm petting the dog and everything else. And he says, hi, I'm Fred and this is Mary, my wife. And I said, oh, hi, I'm James, and this is Pam, my wife. Okay, great. And then I stop for a moment. I say, actually, my name is James Bond. So what does he do? He laughs.
Right.
Okay? I can go by in 5 years from now. You think he's going to remember my name?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, that's the torture I have because of my name. What can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah. But somebody said to me, did you change your name? I said, yeah, my name used to be Fred Flintstone, but I didn't think that would work. No, that's not true, by the way.
What's the I stand for?
Ian, I-A-N.
Oh, okay.
So, and it is, my parents said it's like, they just came up with it randomly, but I don't know. Ian Fleming wrote James Bond. Anyway, James I. Bond. But I'm thinking, as somebody was talking to me, that's what made me think of this whole concept of brain glue. There are certain things that we could hear, if like I said, I'm Fred Flintstone, people would still laugh and they'd remember, hey, that guy's Fred Flintstone over there. You believe it? I mean, there's certain things that we remember, like rhyme, okay? And I'll give you examples because this works with persuasion. This is This is about selling, but it's about persuasion. So has anybody heard the phrase, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit?
No.
That's O.J. Simpson in his trial.
Oh.
And near the end of the trial, Johnny Cochran, his attorney, one of his friends told him this, and he thought it was a good idea, so he used it. And so right at the end, they had O.J. Simpson, who was on trial for murder of his wife and her boyfriend or her
Right.
friend.
Yeah.
And he tried to put on a glove because they said, here's a glove that belongs to to the murderer. And he put a rubber glove on first, and he put the glove on, and you could see he's having trouble putting the glove on. Okay, now who knows? Let's say he was faking it. Okay, doesn't matter. Johnny Cochran, his attorney, said to the jurors, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to acquit. And after the trial, I remember two of the jurors being asked by a journalist, with all that evidence against OJ, why do you find him not guilty? And one of them said this while the other one nodded her head in agreement. And she said, we know if the glove don't fit, you have to acquit. The glove didn't fit. The glove didn't fit. We had to acquit. Okay. Wow. It's rhyme. Okay. How about this one? Okay. At the beginning of the 20th century, the 1900s, Wonder Bread invented sliced bread. They often say, boy, that's the smartest thing since sliced bread. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
They invented sliced bread, but it's also white. They bleach it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the competitors, for 10 years, Wonder Bread dominated the bread industry. And then competitors came up with a rhyming phrase that also used a trigger word. So I'll talk about a trigger word, which is whoa. And it almost bankrupted Wonder Bread. They went from massively being successful to almost out of business because of this one phrase. You know what the phrase was?
No, what?
The whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead.
Oh, no.
Okay. So we had, COVID. Well, back then they had this illness called pellagra. And pellagra was the absence of vitamin B3 in your body. Oh. Today we use niacin, and they put niacin inside food and whatever else so that we don't lack vitamin B3. But back then, if you lacked vitamin B3, you had a good chance of getting pellagra and dying, just like COVID. So the competitors knew that because they bleached the bread, Wonder Bread, that they would kill off a lot of most of the vitamins and minerals, including vitamin B3. And so they came up with the phrase, the whiter your bread, remember, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. And all these journalists put it as headlines in newspapers.
Wow.
Remember, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. Products like Wonder Bread don't have vitamin B, blah, blah, and they talked about it. Well, Wonder Bread literally was going bankrupt. And then the head of Wonder Bread came up with the idea of fortifying food. And they put niacin in that had B3 and then vitamins and minerals inside the bread. And they sort of invented the concept of adding vitamins and minerals to food, and it helped them come back. They never dominated the bread industry again, but just this phrase, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead, stop people from eating Wonder Bread.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing.
So let me give you some examples of people using brain glue type tools. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's a mom and son in Utah, and they love the show Shark Tank. Mm-hmm. And so the mom and son were talking to each other, and they said, wouldn't it be great if we can invent a product, get a manufacturer to manufacture it for us, and then we can start selling it, and we can get on Shark Tank. It would be fantastic if we can get on Shark Tank. And then maybe get rich, because so many people get on Shark Tank and then they get rich. And so they're thinking about it. It took about a month. And the mom has trouble going to the bathroom. Okay. She has, what do you call it again when you have trouble going to the bathroom? Anyway, she had trouble going to the bathroom. Constipation. Thank you. Exactly. And she was constipated. So a doctor told her, when you're on the toilet, if you could raise your feet 6 to 8 inches off the floor, it actually changes the shape of your body and makes it easier to go to the bathroom. She tried it, and it really worked. And so then she thought, about a month after they came up with the idea of like, it would be nice to invent the product, they said, wouldn't it be great if we create this little stool that goes around the toilet that it fits around the toilet. So if somebody goes to the bathroom, they don't have to use it. But if you want to use it, you can just slide it out and put your feet on it. Oh, that'll be really great. And so they found a manufacturer to manufacture it for them for, I don't know, about $4 or $5 each. And they bought 1,000 of them. So they spent $5,000. They took some of their savings. But they needed to come up with a name for it. And so the first name, and this is what we want to do, the first name you come up with should be logical. So the logical name they came up with was the toilet stool. But she said, I don't like that name, the toilet stool. That doesn't sound very good. So what's another name for toilet? Potty. And I'm kind of squatting when I'm going up there. Why don't we call it the squatty potty? Sales exploded. I mean, exploded. Within 2 years, they reached over $100 million of sales. This is two people with no business experience. So I was in a hospital about 2 months ago for heart bypass surgery, and not fun, by the way. Okay. And so I was talking to one of the nurses, and I was telling her, yeah, I wrote this book, Brain Glue, and I was talking about this, and I told her the story about the squatty potty. And she said to me, it's interesting you should say that, because I'm a nurse, so I know that you should raise your feet off the floor when you're on the toilet. And I've got this little thing I raise my feet off the toilet with. Okay. But when I saw squatty potty, I saw it in a store somewhere. I loved the name so much that I bought it, even though I already have a toilet stool. Okay. And it's like, you bought it because you love the name? She said, yeah, it's such a cool name,
Wow.
And it made me realize, if you have a name that resonates, that people, you have a greater chance of people buying it. And there's so many examples of this. It's amazing. But yeah, you start with a logical description of what it is, and then you start applying some of the tools, and it becomes a lot easier to come up with a name of a business or a product or service that people go, oh, I gotta get that. That seems really great. I mean, and we're kids. When we were kids, we had the hula hoop, and think of the names. If they call it the round thing that you put around, that doesn't sound right. But a hula hoop, yeah.
Yeah, my parents were introduced to each other by the guy that created the hula hoop, and my dad did the mood ring for the U.S.
The
so
mood
that's
ring
what
was
sent me to
fantastic.
college.
I had one.
Yeah,
I remember that mood ring. That was the greatest.
Yeah. He saw it made up in platinum in Providence, Rhode Island at a jewelry thing, and then he went and had it knocked off in China. That's how they were everywhere. He was the distributor. So, okay. So when somebody goes through this process to rename, how do you test it? Do you you just test it within your office and your close friends? How do you test it? Like, if I was going to change Conscious Business Zone to make it snappier, I mean, how would I test that? I would, because you've invested, like you changed the name of your book. How do you test it before you pull the trigger?
So I used to hate selling when I was young. I hated selling. And then my wife and I went to Zig Ziglar workshop. Zig Ziglar was fantastic. He was just so great. But he had a line that he said that changed my life. And he said, selling is nothing more than a transference of passion.
Oh,
if you saw a movie that you love, nobody has to teach you how to sell it. You say, oh, I saw this movie. I saw Hidden Figures. I don't know if you ever saw it, with the 3 black women and NASA. Oh, if you never saw it, you definitely want to see it. You'll love that movie. Hidden Figures. It's the true story of 3 women at NASA when they're trying to get man to go into space. Okay, and how it's amazing. But you see, if you saw a movie and you loved it, nobody has to teach you how to sell it. You go, oh, and you're transferring passion, because you're going, oh. But we were taught in school and whatever else to be logical. I mean, and we want to be in business logical, because you want to solve a problem. Yeah. If you have a product that doesn't solve a problem or make people excited, then nobody's going to buy your product.
Right.
So, the hula hoop doesn't solve a problem except fun, but it's got a cool name. Okay.
Yeah. I have a hula hoop that has weights in it now.
Yeah, there you go.
It's an exercise tool. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
it's
that easy, really.
yeah,
It
I
isn't as
bet.
easy as when
I
I
bet.
got my
But the
first
name
one.
is easy to remember. I
Yeah.
I have tons of so let me give you an easy and hard name to remember,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
My book. So so first let me tell you the story of this is Carrie Smith, okay? Carrie Smith, because I was doing research and I learned about Carrie Smith. There's something called trigger words, which there are certain words that when you hear the word, it wakes you up, okay? Blue Emu. I saw an ad for Blue Emu and it said, and I wasn't really watching it, but he said, Blue Emu, it's this stuff that you put when you have arthritis pain, you put it on your joints, your shoulders and your elbow and whatever else.
Uh-huh.
And the commercial goes, Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. What did he just say? And from that moment forward, I was watching it, okay? So, but I started really learning about trigger words. There's certain words. I worked with Warren Buffett's team when he was on his way to becoming the world's richest man. And Warren Buffett loves these types of tools. So he says this line, only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked. What did he just say? Because the word naked wakes you up. He's basically saying only when times get tough do you realize who's capable and competent and who isn't. Okay. But
Yeah.
if he said that, you'd go, yeah, that's true. That's true. But by saying only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked, it's like, whoa, that wakes up your brain. I know this guy named David Baer, Baer, and he and his partner help advertisers, people who have small advertising companies to become more successful. And I can't remember the name of his company, but as I was sitting and we were going through a chat with him and his partner to help him. I said, I think I have the perfect name for you, for your company. And he said, what? I said, Bare Naked Advertising. And his partner starts laughing hysterically. He says, that's perfect. We have to do that. And he said, well, I don't know if I want the name naked next to my name, the word naked. So he never changed, which is too bad because I think it would help him with Bare Naked Advertising. But naked is a trigger word, okay? And certainly if you hear the word naked, hey, look through your backyard and you see a naked guy running through your backyard. That grabs your attention, right? It's like, what?
Right.
That's what brain glue does. It grabs your attention like a naked guy running through your backyard. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
So I was learning about, as I'm into trigger words, and I was learning about Carrie Smith. And Carrie Smith started a small manufacturing company and he made some pretty good money. So he had a friend who had a company that made these big fans, and they were called HVLS fans, high volume, low speed fans. And they were used in barns mostly. Farmers would use it. So in a barn, if you have a horse or a cow, or cows or horses, you're not going to use air conditioning. You're going to have a big fan going in there in the hot days. Okay. And so he would sell it that way. And it was called HVLS fans, high volume, low speed fans. So HVLS fans, he was working, trying to make sales. One day he's talking to somebody, a friend, and the guy says, but so what's so great about these things? And he said, well, they're big fans. They're big ass fans. Big ass fans? Whoa, okay, I want one. Okay. And he goes, really? I'm calling them HVLS fans. And I said big ass fans to this guy, and suddenly he's buying it, Huh. So he ran an ad for big ass fans and sales exploded. And he went, maybe I should change the name of my company to Big Ass Fans. Okay. Yes. He changed, and his company sales exploded. And I'll tell you how much it exploded in a second. Okay. And what happened was he had so much sales that he started selling other products too. And then he realized these other products are distracting me from focusing just on the fans. So he stopped selling everything else and just focused on fans, different types, sizes, but big ass fans. Okay. After 15 years, he sold his business for $500 million.
Oh my God.
For $500 million, he sold big ass fans, and he started from virtually from scratch. So I'm going, okay, so it's about the time where I'm starting to launch my book, and I'm thinking, okay, big ass fans, ass. Okay, so maybe I should use a trigger word, ass. Okay, not people are not that happy, but so be it. And I said, dump your half-ass marketing strategy. So that was the initial title of my book. Okay.
Right.
I started advertising on Amazon and sales started going really well. And then Amazon decided they're changing everything. They said, we're not going to allow you to advertise on Amazon because you have a swear word, ass,
Oh my
big ass
gosh.
fans. And I'm like, no, you're not allowed to advertise. So people are buying my book. I don't care. And so I begged them. I said, if I change the title, will you let me take all the reviews? Because with Amazon, once you have over 100 reviews, then
Right.
they help promote the book. Okay.
Right.
I
Right.
think I had 80 reviews at that time. And I said, and they said, no, we don't allow you to transfer the reviews. I said, but you guys are forcing me to change the title. So he said, okay, fine. We'll let you do it once. Okay. You got to change the title. So me, like an idiot, I'm teaching everybody how to be logical people, how to be emotional. But I picked a logical title for an emotional book. Okay. So I changed the title of the book from Dump Your Half-Ass Marketing Strategy to
Here, I can show it real quick.
Sell more with the right brain marketing strategy. That's what it was. Sell more with the right brain marketing strategy.
Here's your before and after. Let me get to it.
I know it's above that. It's way above that. Oh, it's on the other one. Don't worry about that. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, I wanted to show it. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. But it was sell more with the right brain marketing strategies. And just by the way, and so I met John Gray. I have a friend that put my book on a pile of books that he was looking at. And he got pissed off at me. He said, I am so pissed off. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, no, I picked up your book. I have so many books to read. I picked up your book and I couldn't put the damn thing down. It's like, so I'm so sorry. Can I use that as a quote? And he said, on one condition, and I'll give you video and you can interview me and everything else. I love your book. I'm buying copies for everybody in my company, and he's massively wealthy and successful. He doesn't need me telling him what to do or how to do marketing, but he loves this. He said, I wanted everybody in my company has to know how to do this. The salespeople, the designers, everybody, they have to understand how to do this. And I'm like, okay, wow. He said, so can I use that as a quote? He said, on one condition, you have to change the title. The whole book is about brain glue. You're teaching us emotional selling and you got a logical title, not allowed. So I'm like, okay, do I have to? He said, yes. I basically had to start from zero and work my way up to, I think we have, over 100 reviews now. But he was right. And it's just because people buy for emotional, we buy for emotional reasons. We back it up with logic, but we buy for emotional reasons. If we get a car, we get, we move into a neighborhood or whatever else. And what we want is if we're creating a product or service, or if you have a product or service, then you want to have the name or the slogan for a description for the product or service to be emotional.
Right.
Okay. Right. And I remember Morton Salt. Morton Salt started at the turn of the 20th century. Okay, early 1900s, and salt back then would clump. So when you pour salt, it would just clump and all that stuff. Well, they were the first ones that came up with non-clumping salt. Oh. They didn't want to change the name of the company, Morton Salt, but they came up with a slogan. And the slogan was, when it rains, it pours. And it had a little girl with an umbrella and it's raining. And the slogan is, when it rains, it pours. And sales exploded because they use this metaphor. And it's just, when we start to understand how to emotionally engage people so that they look at our product or service and go like, whoa, interesting. Oh, and it touches us from a passionate standpoint. We have a much easier opportunity to make a fortune. And I mean a fortune. Now, so let me give you an example. So how'd you like to do this? How'd you like to invent a product, an incredible product, and your biggest competitor steals it from you and makes a fortune while you starve to death? Wouldn't that be fun?
No.
Not. Okay, not. Somebody stole your product and they make money and you don't make money?
No.
So so the head of so there's Kellogg's and then Post Cereals, okay? And Post Cereals competes with Kellogg's.
Right.
And so the head of Post Cereals said, Kellogg's is always beating us. They started the cornflakes industry and cereal industry, Kellogg's did. And Post was competing with them. And so the head of Post Cereals said, let's come up with a totally different type of product. And they were thinking about it, and they came up with this idea, this little cake that it has jam inside it, like strawberry, blueberry, raspberry jam. and then you put it in your toaster. And when it comes up out of the toaster, you have this nice warm cake that you could eat. And he said, let's call it Country Squares. You're laughing because you know who we competed
Yeah,
with.
I do.
So Country Squares. And so he was so excited and proud of this that 3 months before he launched Country Squares, he talked to the media and showed them what he was doing. Oy. So, and so the head of Kellogg's was watching this and went like, oh, look at that product. That's incredible. You know, this little cake that you put in a toaster, when it comes out of the toaster, you get this nice warm cake. We could do this too. So he said, guys, all the people that work for his company, I want you to figure out how to make that product, okay? And we're going to come up with a better name than Country Squares, okay? So they made the product exactly the same product, by the way, stole the thing. And he's going, I need a name that's really good. So he used 2 brain glue tools, okay? They didn't call it brain glue back then, but it's 2 of the tools in brain glue. The first one is, so you put it in the toaster, and when it's ready, it pops out of the toaster. Pop. Right. So let's call it pop something because it pops out of the toaster, which is called sense elevation. You pick a sound or a smell, like Smells Like Teen Spirit is a famous song, Yeah. Wow, Smells Like Teen Spirit. That doesn't sound good, It wakes you up, okay? Flop, flop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is for Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah.
So they really work. Okay, so he said we should have the word pop in it because it pops out of the toaster. Okay, and back then, Andy Warhol was really famous, and Andy Warhol was a pop artist, and so there's a tool in brain glue called anchoring, where you're going to take something that's already in people's brains and you use that or twist it just slightly. Okay, like Head and Shoulders. When they came up with Head and Shoulders shampoo, there's a song that little kids would sing: head and shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose.
Yep.
Because they knew that virtually everybody knew that. Why don't we call it Head and Shoulders? And it became massively successful. So for the head of Kellogg's, he said pop art, Pop Tarts. Why don't we call it Pop Tarts? Okay. And of course, as a competitor, he launched it 1 week before post-launch Country Squares. Okay. Because they announced when they're launching it. So 1 week before they launched Pop Tarts became massively successful, far more than the head of Kellogg's even expected. So they ran out of product. Nobody bought Country Squares. They waited. He ran apologies in newspapers saying, I'm so sorry. We ran out of product, but just hang on for a couple of days and we'll have more Pop Tarts available for you. Instead of buying Country Squares, they waited and bought Pop Tarts when they became available again. And the rest, they say, is history. In a short period of time, Post stopped selling Country Squares because almost nobody was buying it. I was reading an article that last year, more than 3 billion Pop-Tarts were sold. Okay?
They taste like cardboard. Ew.
I know, exactly. But people buy them. I have a daughter that eats them. I don't eat them, but it's just because the name is right. Because they trick. So Pop-Tarts, Country Squares, which one are you going to buy? People would say, oh, Pop-Tarts, that seems really cool. And especially when they launched it, and because they had a better name, sales exploded. And that's why you would want to recognize it. You want a name that is going to stick to the brain like glue. People are going to go, oh, because for 2 reasons. One is because they may not buy it today, but you want them to remember it. I'll go back to David Bear, okay? I can't remember the name of his company. But if he called it Bare Naked Advertising, you only have to tell me once. I knew Bare Naked Advertising, got it, And there's like these 2 guys in Southern California who there's a natural juice called Odwalla, which is owned by Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
They decided that they're going to make a better juice than Odwalla, but they're competing against Coca-Cola. I mean, Coca-Cola has mass distribution and all that stuff in advertising. And so they said, well, we need to come up with a name that's really going to grab attention first, okay? So why don't we call it Naked Juice, okay? But they were kind of embarrassed. So the word naked was small on the label, okay? And sales really took off with Naked Juice. So then they hired, once they started making some money, they hired a better graphic designer. And they said, could you help us come up with a uniform look for all the Naked Juices that we sell? Mm-hmm. So he said, the first thing we have to do is make that word naked big on the label. And they went, you think we should? He said, yeah, definitely. They did that, and sales exploded past Odwalla, that was owned by Coca-Cola, and Naked Juice became the dominant natural juice in America.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, the name Naked. Okay.
Wow. Okay, so I have a question for you about NLP compared to what you're doing. Is there any correlation, or because there's a lot of people that have taken, I have not taken NLP, but there's a lot of people that, you know, that's part of their resume is they talk about it. Is brain glue like NLP?
Well, NLP, which is which is neurolinguistic programming,
Right.
is basically understanding how the brain works.
Right.
And it's theoretically, it's very good. Okay. There are a lot of people like Tony Robbins and stuff that promote it and everything else. And there's a lot of positives about it. When we're trying to sell, we want to understand, like, how do people respond naturally? Okay. But brain glue makes it easier because it actually gives you the tool. So it gives you rhyme, shows you examples of, people that use rhyme, and then it gives you an exercise to do rhyme. I'll do, so I'll use rhyme as an example. Jack and Jill went up the hill, so we know that, okay? Liar, liar, pants on fire, okay? Okay? So when they launched Timex watches, it was a very indestructible watch. And so they came up with the slogan, it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Okay? Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Alka-Seltzer actually discovered this. And they said Alka-Seltzer is like when you feel an upset stomach, you take Alka-Seltzer, you put one Alka-Seltzer inside a glass of water. But the problem, they discovered there's a problem. And the problem is it actually doesn't work very well until you put 2. You need to put 2 of the Alka-Seltzer tablets inside water for it really to help you right away. And so they said, well, we need to come up with a slogan. So why don't we make it plop, plop, fizz, fizz, because it fizzes.
Yes.
So plop, plop, fizz, fizz, which uses a sense elevation, okay? Because it's plopping, the sound, and fizzing, okay? But let's make a rhyme. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is.
Yeah.
And by coming up with the rhyme, it just took off like crazy. Like I said, the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. We have stores like Handy Dandy. How about Famous Amos?
Yeah.
Famous Amos cookies, okay? I mean, there are just so many that are like this. Tiny Tim. Well, that's not rhyme. But anyway, that's another one I'll talk about in a second. But it's just when you start to understand that tool, so I take you through that tool, it becomes really easy because you go, okay, now you try it. So what are some of the words that describe what your product is? Like squatty potty, okay? Potty. Okay, what rhymes with potty? I don't know. Well, what are some of the words that work with that? Okay, well, you're squatting, squatty potty, And so you come up with things like that. And then like there's a tool that's called alliteration, the repetition of sound. Okay. When I started doing research in this, and I realized Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok. Okay, they have in politics, Biden's Build Back Better. You think it's a coincidence that they picked that? No, And so, like, think of all the different types of products that fall into this category. I mean, it's just we have Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Beauty and the Beast. Build-A-Bear.
Yeah.
Best Buy, Bed Bath and Beyond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So repetition of sound can really help you. We have Catch a Killer, Dirty Dancing for D's. If you go up the thing, Dirty Dancing uses 2 things. Dirty. Who uses the word dirty when they're describing their product or movie? Yeah. We have Dirty Dancing, Dirty Harry, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Right.
Because it like wakes up the brain, and so you go like, whoa, what? Dirty Dancing? What's that all about? And it became massively successful.
Isn't that something?
So, but when you're given a tool, showing examples of it, and then giving an exercise so you can actually come up with it yourself, it becomes easier to apply. And I think that's one of the problems. I do lots of marketing for at 3 major universities. I'm a guest speaker, or have been a guest speaker at 3 major universities in Southern California. And that's one of the problems that people realize is that you get these theoretical concepts, but it's hard to apply the concept. So they know the theory, but they don't apply the concept, you know? And so to me, I want to make it as easy as possible to apply. I mean, I'll give you an example. So in marketing, we often think about who's our target audience, okay?
Yep.
And we have all these prospects. But not all these prospects are actually ready to buy.
Right.
Some of them will never buy. So how do you know, what's the difference between a buyer who's ready to buy right now and everybody else? And I ask that, and people have trouble answering that, but you want to work to answer that. So let me give you an example. My mom passed away 2 years ago, and she was older, over 90. And I was helping her financially and all that stuff. And so caregivers saw me as one of their prospects. I've got an older mom, and so, hey, if you want your mom to have caregivers, we can help you and all that stuff. And they would promote to me. But I could care less about caregivers because my mom was independent. She would drive herself. She was involved in lots of different organizations and, things like that. And so I could care less. Then she got a stroke. She got a stroke. And then now suddenly, how do you find a good caregiver for my mom who had a stroke? How much does it cost? Does insurance cover it? How do you know a good caregiver from a bad caregiver? I mean, suddenly, in a short period of time, I became a hot prospect.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a caregiving organization, and I said, "How's a buyer who's ready to buy now different from all the other prospects you have? Let's pick stroke." And so we created ads that said, "Did your mom or dad have a stroke recently? Do you know that caregivers for stroke victims are different from other caregivers? Here are some of the things that you want to look for." Their sales exploded. In fact, so much so they didn't have enough caregivers to service all the clients they had. But because we're focusing on how is a buyer who's ready to buy now different from all the other prospects you have? I like a car one. So who's going to buy a car? Maybe somebody who's all my two neighbors that I hate just bought brand new cars. I'm the only one who has an old car. Okay. So you're tired of, do all your friends have new cars and you're the only one that doesn't have a new car? Come to us. We'll give you one. It makes it easier to relate to, how is my buyer different from everybody else? Does that make sense?
So it's a trigger word, and it's the reticular activating system, whatever that is, reticular activating system, that it's like you're starting to look at Subaru cars, and everywhere you see a Subaru or a Honda, all of a sudden, or Mercedes or a Tesla now, you just see it everywhere. That's the same thing where you're saying you use a trigger word that activates that, because their consciousness is looking for that, right?
Because selling is nothing more than a transference of passion. So you got to trigger the passion side. Here's one of the things, okay? If I said 2.5 million plastic bottles, Americans discard 2.5 million plastic bottles every year.
Wow.
Sounds like a lot, but when you throw numbers, that's the left brain side. It's like when somebody asks you what the price is and you give them the price, they suddenly turn off. They go, "Well, I'm really excited. The price, well, I'm not sure I want to spend the money." Okay. What you want to do is you want to trigger the emotion side of the brain. Okay. So if I said Americans discard 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour, that's enough to reach the moon every 3 weeks.
Wow. Yeah. Then
okay. I just gave you perspective. Okay. Well, now that second line makes this much more, if I said Americans discard 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour, it's like, well, that's a lot. It sounds like a lot. I can't imagine how much it is, but
wow,
so enough to reach the moon every 3 weeks. They're like,
So really, it is telling. It's being more aware of the results that you're getting, and the way that the product or service supports the other person in a relatable way.
Yes.
Like the plop plop fizz fizz that said 2 tablets. It did.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're talking to somebody, so here's a tool that's really powerful. Somebody says, so how much, so you're selling a product or service. Let's say selling a service. I had my construction company, and they would say, how much is it? And then you give them a price. and then you're quiet, that's the worst thing you could ever do, is just give them a price and be quiet, because it triggers the right side of the brain, the logical side of the brain, which turns off the emotion side of the brain where people buy. But if you say the price, so the price is so-and-so, and that includes this and this. Let's say we're selling fancy windows for a house, okay? So how much is it going to cost? Well, it's going to cost like $2,400 for the windows. But that means you're going to have windows that are sealed on the side. They look beautiful when your friends come to see them. And if I give you the logic, which is the price, and then I include the emotion when I'm describing it, it becomes easier for them to buy, it becomes easier for us to get them to buy, because we're, numbers turn off the emotion side of the brain, and the emotion side of the brain is where people buy. Rarely do we buy. In marketing, we say you want people to know, like, and trust you. Okay, why? Because if you don't like this person, are you going to buy from them? Probably not.
No.
In some cases you will, because you need what they have. They're the only ones that have it, but that tends to be rare. In most cases, if you don't like the person, they're not going to buy from you.
Right.
That's one of the things in Brain Glue. One of the Brain Glue tools I have is jokes. There are certain tools that you use, like jokes, that trigger oxytocin, and oxytocin makes the brain more receptive to what you're saying. I have these 3 women, and who are religious, quite religious, and I was trying to sell them this thing, help them sell something, and I wanted them to be receptive to what I was saying, because I was going to talk about some stuff that was complicated as far as they were concerned. So I started with a joke. I said, "Oh, by the way, can I start with a joke?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "Well, this little girl comes up to her mommy and says, 'Mommy, Daddy says we came from apes, but you say we came from Adam and Eve.' Honey, Daddy's talking about his family. I'm talking about my family." Okay. And like you're laughing, they were laughing hysterically, and suddenly they're much more receptive to me. And so that's why, if you can make it like Squatty Potty, the nurse that I was talking about said, "I love the name so much. It was really awesome that I ended up buying the product." Even though she had something that did that.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I love this. And I think this is going to really help. Okay, so I got another question, and then I definitely want to share your website. But my next question is, have you seen things change a lot since the lockdown as far as what you're doing? So do you have any recommendations for all of us out here on the rebuild after after the slowdown? And I'm just being honest, it was a slowdown for me and a lot of my clients. So do you have any recommendation for us now?
Well, one of the companies that benefited the most from the lockdown was Zoom.
Zoom and Amazon.
And Amazon, yeah, that's right. Because they recognized, people we're going to work online. I mean, I used to do live workshops all the time for a small business administration, and now almost all my workshops are webinars.
Yes, yeah.
It's more fun having a live audience, because then people can raise their hand. I've got a question. How about this? Yeah. And we interact more. But that's fine, But it's changed a lot how we interact. But we have to understand that selling is selling, and the bottom line is you need to trigger the emotion parts of selling. Perfect. I mean. So, I'm on your podcast so people can see me, and if hopefully they like me, hopefully, but I'm having fun, and I'm controlled by this. I saw this guy that had a T-shirt that said "Life sucks and then you die," and I'm like, no, this is life right now. Life has to be awesome. So one of the things I try to promote is have fun. So when you're selling your product or service, you want to have fun as much as you can. I mean, I do. I'll give you I talked about the 3 guys in the construction industry. Okay.
Right.
So here's how I applied Brain Glue. So I took a whiteboard and I said, let's make a shopping list. You've been in business for 10 years. Okay. So let's make a shopping list of all the different types of clients you've worked with over the past 10 years. Who else? Get some examples of look at some of your invoices and stuff, and let's see. Oh, we work with this one. Okay, fine. So the whiteboard was filled with all these different types of clients they work with, the construction company. Then I said, let's play a game. let's pretend you're going to pick one type of client you're going to work with, and you're going to say no to everybody else. Who would it be? And then they said, well, we don't want to say no to anybody. I said, I understand it, but we're playing a game right now. Ha ha ha. Okay, we're playing a game. If you're going to focus on one niche or niche, who would it be? It took a while, and they finally said, you know what? Fire restoration for insurance companies. I said, what's that? Because I have no idea. I said, well, we have insurance companies that have a client that has a fire. So we do two things. The first thing we do is we go in there and we check the frame. If the frame of the building is damaged, you got to tear down the whole building. But if it's not, then you fix it without tearing down the building.
Uh-huh.
And we've done three. We've had one client gave us two of their clients, and one gave us one of their clients, and it was just over a few years ago. But we'd love to work with fire restoration for insurance companies. That would be fun. Okay, so now we get into brain glue, and I said, so how are you going to describe? And they didn't want to change the name of the company, so we're going to come up with a slogan. Okay. So when an insurance company has a client that has a fire, what's the first word that comes to their mind? And they're going like, I don't know what would it be. So let me try it again. Okay. When one of their clients has a fire, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Fire.
Exactly. And so one of the clients says, fire? Yeah, fire. Okay. So let's pick a term that they already know. Fire. I got it. Why don't we call you guys the fire extinguisher for insurance companies?
Oh, wow.
And so they started laughing and said, we're going to call ourselves the fire extinguishers? Yeah. It's, we don't put out the fire, but we're fix the building after there's a fire. So I went with them to two prospects. And we're talking, and I said, they're talking, and they're embarrassed to say we're the fire extinguisher. So I spoke up, and I said, we're your fire extinguisher. Just think of us as your fire extinguisher. In fact, we got the website firex.com, okay, to make it easy. He said, every time you have a client that has a fire, call the fire extinguisher. So the prospect's laughing. I say, okay, you guys are fire extinguisher? Yeah, we're your fire extinguisher. Okay. As we're driving back to their office, the receptionist is telling us, the client you just went to just called and has a client for you already. Their sales exploded. It took them 10 years to reach 2 million in sales. They started going to every single insurance company that they could and told them, we're your fire extinguisher. And they would get calls. Hey, I need the fire extinguisher. And people would call, and sales exploded. They went from 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year, and they reached 32 million 2 years later. I mean, sales exploded, but it's because, we understand. We made them laugh.
Yeah.
But we came up with a simple way to remember what we
remember
are.
Them, yeah.
David Bear with Bare Naked Advertising is you want a name that's easy to remember. Sell More with the Right Brain Marketing Strategy. The title of my book was terrible because people said, I'm trying to refer your book. I love it. And I couldn't remember the name. And I can't say, look up James Bond because they still can't get you. So I was tortured.
The next thing is you have to show up at these interviews with a martini, shaken, not stirred.
I go to restaurants with my kids, and they'll say, Dad, I need your license. I said, what? Why? I said, they don't believe it's James Bond. I had people hang up on me. I had this guy, his name is Jesse James, and he's a finance guy. Jesse James, wasn't he a bank robber? Okay. And so I'm calling his office. I said, is Jesse? And he said, who's calling? I said, James Bond. She said, yeah, right. And hung up on me. I called back and said, I'm so sorry, Mr. Bond. He's waiting for your call.
Oh, that's so funny.
Okay.
That's
but
so
you want something that's easy to remember. And it's just, I remember Hooters, the restaurants. Okay.
Yeah.
And these guys, so I live in Southern California in this area called Thousand Oaks, and they were going to open a Hooters restaurant. Now, it isn't like it's a strip tease or anything like that. It's just girls with shorts and T-shirts, good looking girls, whatever else it is. But it's Hooters. And they said, no, we do not want a Hooters restaurant in our neighborhood. And they're saying there's nothing, we don't have naked people or anything. So it's just the name. Said, no, with a name like that, we don't want our kids to see it. We don't want Hooters. I don't care what you do. But they became Blockbusters a success with that name. I'm not saying to have a name like that because you can, you have Squatty Potty or Pop-Tarts. I mean, there's lots of other ways you can have it, but or fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguisher.
Just they
James,
became massively wealthy because they had a name that was memorable.
right, right. So we're almost out of time. So I want to show your website so people get a chance to benefit from everything you do. So here's this wonderful book, and you guys want to get it. And here's Jack Canfield's.
See what he said? Mind blowing. Only an idiot wouldn't buy this book. He was like, "Oh, thank you. Can I use that?" You know, yeah,
There he
fine.
is. So this is, this is not AI generated. This is really Jack Canfield. And
Yeah.
then this is all some of the, it's not all of, but some of the accolades and contests that you've won with it. And then, so this whole book information is here. And then what I wanted people to know about is, so I have the ebook of it, which I'm just loving. And but there's also, if you prefer to learn through training videos, do you want to talk just a second about this, James?
Sure. And it's, for a lot of us, we read it, but we still want to apply it. So to me, there are two things that are really important. One is hearing somebody talk about it and then just breaking it into chunks so that I'll talk about one thing first. I'll talk about rhyme. We'll go through this. We'll give you an exercise and it'll be fun. We give you jokes. Jokes, you can actually create jokes with Brain Glue too, but just a FYI. In fact, I have one, I'd rather wake up and pee than pee and wake up. Okay, that's old people. I'm an old person. I can relate. Okay, but it's just anyway. But when you learn the tool, you go, oh, this is really easy, and it becomes easy. So there are videos. There are short videos, and short videos, not long ones. You have to. I hate those things. You go through it's an hour video and blah blah blah. All that stuff. They're short little things. Takes you through an exercise. There's a copy of the book, a PDF copy of the book, but you also have a guide, the Brain Glue guide, and it's an exercise that takes you through this. And people love this because it makes it easy. So you've learned about this, like how to use rhyme for your business or whatever else, and then it has an exercise where you list the words that relate to your product or service. Okay, and then you can actually use a Chat GPT if you want to use it, something like that, or you can just go into the Google and just type up stuff, but you find words that rhyme with it and you put them all together. And it's amazing how, I said, switch, pitch. I talk about how you help with the pitch. So one of my slogans is switch your pitch if you want to get rich. Okay.
Perfect.
That's one.
Perfect.
I have another one that says, helps people build their passion. So Brain Glue helps you light the fire of desire in your buyer, and so it gives you exercises and you go through the exercise, which a lot of them are fun. It has jokes too, if you want to come up with jokes, by the way. But it gives you the exercise and it makes it really easy to come up with it. And I have tons, I can't tell you, literally hundreds of people who have small businesses. And this is the key of this, okay? If you're a multi-million-dollar business, even if you have a crappy name, it doesn't matter because you're going to advertise all over whatever it is, TV, radio, whatever else, and that's fine. But if you don't have a lot of money, like most of us don't, and you want to compete, like the guys Naked Juice, okay? They didn't have money to compete with Coca-Cola, okay, or product Coca-Cola makes, and yet they were able to zoom right past them. And that's what Brain Glue is designed for, people who don't want to spend a lot of money, but they want to come up with a way to describe their products or service so that sales will take off. It'll stick to the brain like glue. And that's really what it's all about. That's why Yes Brain Glue. If you go to yesbrainglue.com, that was the page you were showing, Kathy. Yes. Then that really will help you because it has exercises even on the page, yesbrainglue.com, that are really fun.
Yes, and because James has been a trainer at SBA and he's done these presentations over and over again, that if you get the workshop and the book and the action thing, that for only $47, you can have what most people would charge a lot of money for consulting. You can do it yourself. I can't wait to play around with this and see what I can do. And thank you so much, James. I think this is really what's supposed to be, what marketing is supposed to be about, serving people, getting attention without having to say, cuss words every other word, and really being in service with people at this time of big change. Perfect time to change your stuff, right? But if nothing else, your tagline, if you won't change the name of your company, definitely change the tagline, create a new product with a new name. Is perfect timing, James. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Kathy, for having me on your show.
Yeah, what a pleasure. I'm so glad to meet you. And I'm so glad we were able to connect to do this. Thank you. Thank you. So everyone, go to yesbrainglue.com to get in touch with James, and you'll be glad you did. And for those of you that I've tagged that have a show, you can see what a wonderful speaker he is. So I tagged a bunch of you that have your own interview shows. So hope you'll pick up on this opportunity. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Share, like.